Huge thank you to today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace.com is the easiest way to start your own website. Thank you, Squarespace. Hey, I'm Randy, and you're watching The Cheap Audio Man. Here at The Cheap Audio Man, we talk about high-value hi-fi home theater and headphone equipment. And today, we're talking about the SMSL A300. I was very excited to get this and a twin because they can be run in mono, which means twice the power. So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk about this and a twin can be all the power you'll ever need. The reason I was so excited about getting this amplifier in is because of the AL200, also from SMSL. I reviewed that amplifier, which also has an internal DAC and a headphone amp, so it's a great value. It comes in at $260. The one thing about that amplifier, and I will link that review right here, was just how good it sounded and how powerful it was, and the extreme value about having a DAC, having a headphone amp, having a very good speaker amplifier. The one biggest complaint about that amplifier I heard in the comments was that it did not have a subwoofer out. And I didn't even know this amplifier existed. So I really appreciate everybody putting things in the comments because it helps me. You would think that I would know about all the newest, latest, and greatest hi-fi stuff coming out, but that couldn't be further from the truth sometimes. That's why I was super excited about the A300 because not only does it have a subwoofer out, but this amplifier can also be bridged, which means it almost doubles, or maybe it does double the power. So let's talk about how this thing works. But first, a word from our sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace.com is the easiest way to start your own website. I personally have started 3 websites, and I've tried to build websites on other platforms before, and they were clunky, hard, difficult. I felt like I needed to be some type of web engineer, designer, world internet coder with HTMLs. But you don't have to be that to make a really cool looking website on Squarespace.com, because the only thing you have to do is type in a few things about yourself or your business, and Squarespace spits out, in a very nice way, dozens of different templates that you can use. And then the only thing you have to do is drag and drop your own pictures, double click on the text box, and fill out things about you or your business. Are you a toilet plunger enthusiast? Then run out. Are you a toilet plunger enthusiast? Then run out and see if toiletplungerenthusiast.com is available. Plungerfanatics.net. Porcelainsuctiondevices.com. There's a whole bunch of different domains available. And Squarespace will help you find the right domain for you. .com, .net, .org. Just about anything. Squarespace also has a great help section, so if you're confused on how to set up a store or create email campaigns, Squarespace has you covered with videos, with articles about how to get started and how to add different sections to your website. You can also check your analytics real time, pretty much. See who is clicking on your website and from where. So when you get all those clicks on your toilet plunger website from South America, you can open up international shipping to make sure that you're satisfying all the toilet plunger needs of South America. All your fans down there. So go to squarespace.com/cheapaudioman and get 10% off your first purchase by entering the code cheapaudioman. Thank you so much, Squarespace, for making this video happen. I think that may have been my funniest actual real sponsor spot I've ever done. So if you click through the Squarespace spot, you may want to go back and check it out just for the laughs. One of the reasons why I was so excited about this amplifier is because of the AL200. I already mentioned that. But the reason why is the new Infineon chipset that they're utilizing inside this amplifier and the AL200. It's the Infineon MA5332MS. But I knew this was a different sounding amplifier because a lot of the amplifiers used Infineon 12070 chipsets. That's been used in a lot of amplifiers from years ago. And when I say years ago, I'm talking about like 18 months, 2 years ago. It was a good sounding amplifier chip, but it had a tendency to be a little harsh on top, a little bit thin, not a ton of bass punch. But when I got the AL200 in, it was one of those products that I thought, okay, I'll listen to it. But I was really blown away. I don't always love the inclusion of an internal DAC, but for a product that costs $260 and a great sounding DAC. Also had a headphone amp. Got super excited though because the A300 lets me choose which DAC I want. And it has a subwoofer out. And it can be bridged. So what's on the back? Before we talk about what's on the back, we're running a huge giveaway. I'm going to be giving away thousands of dollars of hi-fi equipment. Companies like Wharfdale are giving away tower speakers. U-Turn's giving away turntables. Just Shelly Labs giving away DACs or maybe a headphone amp. Either way, it's awesome. Weem is giving away a Weem Pro Plus streamer. Q Acoustics is giving away a pair of awesome speakers too. Black Ice Audio is giving away a tube amp. Cambridge Audio is giving away the DAC Magic and their streamer. Vanatu is giving away one pair of powered speakers for sure, and it could be two. RSL is giving away a monstrous 12S subwoofer. The only thing that you have to do, well, is make sure that you're subscribed and fill out the Google form. If you're already subscribed, it's okay. Go ahead and fill out the Google form. I will link that right here. It'll also be in the description. The sooner we get to 200,000 subscribers, the sooner everybody starts to get their free stuff. Who doesn't love free hi-fi? And by the way, if in the comments somebody that looks like me says you've won something, you haven't. I'm going to select the winners live. And then I'll send out emails to each person. Emails. So nothing in the comments. Those are scammers. They want to take your money. I do not want any of your money. And if you're international, don't worry. We'll make it right. Even if we can't ship you something, we'll give you some type of gift card. So make sure you subscribe. Follow me on Instagram @CheapAudioMan and fill out the Google form. On the back, pretty straightforward back here. You have two analog inputs. You have one subwoofer output, one bridged output, and this is really important because it can get a little bit confusing. Then over here, you have a USB input. You have Bluetooth antenna, which you can see is not even connected. Then you have your two speaker binding posts. IEC connection, master power switch toggle right here. Internal power supply, so you don't have to worry about any power supply bricks. You don't have to worry about getting a different voltage or different amperage power supply brick to get the most out of this thing. On the front, it's pretty straightforward. You have a screen right here, or a little rotating knob. That's how you control everything. And then over here you have power, you have menu, and then you have inputs. This also comes with the ubiquitous SMSL remote control, which I don't have in front of me. But let's see if we can find one that looks like it. Yep, here we go. So everything can be controlled through the remote control, more importantly on the front of the device itself, which is really good because sometimes you'll get devices that can only be controlled with the remote control. And if you're anything like me and you have children, chances are that remote control may disappear. You'll find it later in a potted plant when you move out of your house. Let's talk about how it works. It does come with a manual, or you can find this online. The manual, pretty straightforward, pretty useful until we get into the bridged mode. But I'm going to go over that so there's no ambiguity or confusion, because I had a lot of confusion. You have 4 different inputs to choose from: analog 1, analog 2, or input 1, IN1, IN2. Then you have Bluetooth or USB. Personally, I'm not going to use the Bluetooth, nor am I going to use the USB. If I wanted to put some type of streamer on there, I'd put a Weem Mini for about $80, use its internal DAC, but probably I'm hooking up a Weem to a DAC, or you can get the Weem Pro Plus, which has a very good AKM 4493 DAC. Plug it right into here. So getting into the regular menu, the first option is the EQ settings, and some of these are actually very useful. You have 8 different EQ modes. We're going to go through them right now because some of them are actually pretty useful. E0 is direct, so no EQ. E1, tone. I don't exactly know what that is. They do have a little graph that shows what each one does, but you got to have pretty good eyesight because They use different colors, and one's like brown and then one's like greenish brown. Not the easiest thing to differentiate, especially when it's the size of a postage stamp. E2 is SDB. This is the one that I love. SDB is kind of like a loudness button. Most of these SMSL amps could really use a little bit of EQ. This A300 is pretty solid even in direct mode, but when you put on SDB, that's when the magic happens. E3 is bass. Also somewhat usable if you have a pretty thin speaker. E4, super bass. Not as useful. E5 is rock. I think that's a bit heavy-handed. E6 is soft. Don't exactly know what that is. And E7 is clear, which basically means treble burn-in your brain. All right, then you go into the treble adjustment. So you have bass and treble controls too. I think it's plus or minus 9. I would keep that within plus or minus 3. These tone controls are not as heavy-handed as some other amplifiers, and I think the frequencies that they're at are better, but personally for me, I would kind of steer clear of the tone controls and just use the baked-in EQ depending upon your speaker. Then you have brightness level, 3 of them. So depending upon how bright you want the LEDs, that would be where you'd want to go into in the menu setting. The bridged mode, it's either on or it's off. Even sometimes when it's on, it's still off because you got to set this thing up exactly right. Then you have a high pass filter. It's either on or it's off. However, I've yet to find what frequency the high pass filter is actually at. If I had to guess, it would probably be 80 or 90, but I have to guess because I haven't found it anywhere, even in SMSL's own literature. So if you know, please put it in the comments. And then there's something you can do with the volume display, but I'm not sure about that. Let's talk about how to bridge this little guy. Self-reported power ratings. 165 watts times 2 into 4 ohm loads. 85 watts times 2 into 8 ohm loads. However, it doesn't give whether it's 0.1, 1%, 10% total harmonic distortion. The good news is, even if it's 10% THD, that's still a lot of power out of a very small footprint. I wish this thing had a little bit better ventilation though, because I'm a bit worried that prolonged high power usage is going to cut this thing down a little bit. I never really felt like it was giving off much heat at all. You can never have too much ventilation though. Bridged power ratings is 330 watts times 1, and that says 428 ohms. Either way, 330 watts, more than enough. 200 watts is usually more than enough. Now, to get that amount of power though, some people may be scratching their heads. It took me 30 minutes to figure out how to do this. And I actually found out how to do it on the Audio Science Review forums. So thank you, somebody in the Audio Science Review forums, for walking me through it. But still, even then, it was very complicated. Super straightforward in the manual. Bridged instructions for use. Actually, it's BTL instructions for use. In the power off state, please connect the speaker cable to the left channel of input 1/2 first. Select BR1 when the power is turned on, then switch to input 1/2 according to the input signal and play music. In bridge mode, only the left channel input signal of input 1 or 2. Okay? You got that? Then it has description of BTL-R. In the bridge mode, the channel of input 1/2 is connected to the signal, and the BTL-R will output the signal of the right channel of input 1 or 2. Couldn't get it to work for a while. So I'm going to explain how to do it in my own words. Most amplifiers that can be bridged will have something denoting which speaker posts to use. There's nothing on this one. It does tell you which speaker post to use in the manual. But how hard is it to put bridged? Boom, boom. So when you're bridging this thing, you need to use the positive on the right speaker and the negative on the left speaker on both amps. Here's where it gets a little bit confusing. For me anyway. Usually when I'm bridging an amplifier, I take the right RCA from the source and plug it into one of the amplifiers, and the left RCA from the source and plug that into the other amplifier. However, you do not do it in this case. You will plug in both the right and the left into one of the inputs, either input 1 or input 2. I just left it on input 1. Then you hook up the speaker to the right positive and the left negative. And this is the left channel now. Whichever amp you plug both the right and the left RCA into from the source is the left channel. Then you will take a single RCA and plug it into the BTL-R. Then you'll run that over to the other amplifier and plug that into the left channel input. So lefty lefty, always plug the inputs into the left channel. Both RCAs into the first amp, one RCA from BTL-R on that first amp over to the left channel of the same input. And then you plug your speaker into the positive right channel and the negative left channel. You have to do all this in the power off mode. And then on the amplifier that you have both right and left channels going into, you go into the menu and select BR1. I had to do this a couple of times, and what I think I was doing wrong is I was trying to do it while it was powered on. So you have to kind of connect all these things properly, and the confusion I was getting into is because I figured if it's the right channel, I would plug it into the right channel of input 1 or 2. No, you got to plug it into the left channel of input 1 or 2, even though it's the right channel. It gets a little confusing. The other thing that can be a bit of a gotcha is the remote control. Why? Because one remote control controls both volumes, and the volume on the other amplifier, the right amplifier going into the right speaker, is not disabled. And what happens is the right amplifier becomes somewhat of a balance control. However, the left amplifier, that volume is overall volume. So if you don't somehow block off the IR control on the right amplifier, your center image is going to go all wonky everywhere. Actually, your center image is going to go all the way to the right as you turn up the volume, because not only are you turning up the volume overall from a voltage standpoint, but then you're turning up the volume individually on that right amplifier, which is going to pull your center image all the way to the right. Now, all of this sounds complicated, but once I figured out how to do it, I kind of like having all that functionality or variability. I actually like having the volume control, being able to control fundamentally balance of the right speaker. So if you're going to bridge these amplifiers, I would take a nice big piece of duct tape and put it over the left side, because the IR receiver is right here. And unless you get it completely covered up, that one remote is going to control and mess up your balance. Okay, that may be a little confusing for folks. It was certainly confusing for me. Let's talk about how it sounds. This part will be fairly straightforward because I've already touched on most of it. Even in the direct mode, I think this sounds a lot better than any of the crop of amplifiers coming in, with the exception of maybe the 3255 Texas Instrument amp chipset amps from like IEMA and Fozzy Audio. I think this is the first Infineon chipset that I've heard that really sounds pretty natural, especially when you put it into SDB, the EQ mode. It gets really fun, super dynamic, not super harsh on top. And with the different EQ settings, depending upon what speakers you have paired with it, you can really kind of mitigate the inadequacies of your speaker with the EQ settings. Some are a little bit heavy-handed, yes. But for the most part, I think this is the most versatile sounding Infineon amp that I've heard. Sounds really good, even in direct mode. We'll get into more comparisons later, so make sure you subscribe, because I'll compare this definitely to the Fozzy Audio V3, but I'm also going to compare it to some Class AB amplifiers too to see how this thing can hang. So, what are my final thoughts? Final thoughts. I didn't hear a huge, massive sonic improvement when I went from regular stereo mode to bridged mode. Maybe a little bit bigger soundstage, but with all the DSP EQ settings going on, it was difficult to tell the difference. Here's the thing, I don't even know if you need to bridge these things, because just one of these amplifiers puts out enough power to, well, fry a speaker. I think I broke I think I destroyed the ELAC BS41s with the AL200 amplifier. I was easily able to get 85, 90 dB in my living room. Was using the Source Point 8s and the Wharfedale Linton on this amplifier. I turned it up as loud as I comfortably wanted to hear it, and I did not want to destroy either of those speakers. It was louder than I would ever use it. You may get a little bit more dynamics when you're in bridged mode. I didn't particularly hear that there was a massive improvement in dynamics or even bass. This thing is thumpy and thick in the bass while still maintaining a lot of clarity. I think it's a great value at $195, and I'm glad it exists because then you can put whatever DAC you want on it. I was running the XDA3 from Emotiva, which is a DAC. Really, it's a preamp because it has one analog input balanced, one analog input RCA. So you basically have two analog inputs. That DAC / preamp does not have a subwoofer output. However, the A300 from SMSL does have a subwoofer output. With the mystery high-pass filter, which frequency, I have no idea. With the mystery high-pass filter, I think this is a great combo with the Squarespace, their home theater processor. That comes in at $400. So you could buy 3 of these and run every channel, or if you really wanted to up the power, you could buy 5 of these. However, you're only going to be able to do that on the front and the left channel. You may be able to figure out a way to do it on the center channel, but the only way I got this to work is to have both left and right channels going into one unit and then running that BTL-R line over to the other unit. Regardless, you could integrate the A300 into your home theater system somehow. I think it's an outstanding value at $195. I don't know how long this thing will last because I don't have a lot of long-term experience with these or anything else. If you're going to get it though, I would put it through its paces. I would buy from a place like Amazon, or I would buy from a place like Apos Audio because you have local support. Apos Audio also does warranty work. So if anything does happen during the warranty period, you can return it to Apos Audio and they will take care of you locally. So if you're after a really good sounding amplifier and a pretty small footprint, I don't think you can go wrong with the A300. There's a lot of functionality. And if you have experience, if you own the A300s and you've been using it in mono mode, please put it in the comments. Tell us what your experience is. If you want to support the channel, you can sign up for Patreon. You can check out the links in the description. Most of those are affiliate links. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Down at the bottom of the video, it says the thanks button. You can click on it, get me a cup of coffee, put a little money in the tip jar, but don't feel compelled to buy me anything. So don't binge watch anything on Netflix or Hulu. Binge listen, maybe spend $400 and get a pair of mono blocks, kind of, from SMSL, and fill your soul with happiness. And with that, I'm Randy. I'm the Cheap Audio Man.